Hey everybody, welcome to whatever this is. It's a new thing from myself, Samson Folk. It's a mailbag, a once a week mailbag that I will be doing to hopefully not disaffect people so much who are missing the reaction podcast. Yes, I'm over there doing it with Will, but also we have a special community here of people who listen, who ask questions. We have a good dynamic there. We built it over the course of last season. I still want to be able to talk to you guys and to talk to you with me, Louis Zatzman, editor extraordinaire over at Raptors Republic. How you doing, Louis?
I'm doing wonderful. When you asked me to be here, I was feeling blessed. What a joy.
It is a joy, just a joy to hang out and do stuff together. Yeah, so in case anybody didn't know, this is now a once a week podcast / live stream where I listen and respond to listener questions, both in live chat and asked before. And the first question we're going to get into is a very interesting one, and it was a DM. And so I really like this one because it's nice and meaty and juicy. It's a very it's a topic you can kind of glob onto. And so it says, okay, this is from David. Thank you, David, by the way. Really enjoying the dynamic between you and Will. Thank you for that. Cool. Also, quick one. How many All-Stars are there on the Raptors roster right now? That's an interesting question. So it doesn't have to be this year. It could be in the future. We're talking about Gradey. We're talking about Scottie, who is obviously already an All-Star. We're talking about RJ. Who do you think? I'll give it to you first, Louis. How many All-Stars are on this roster?
So I think this is where we disagree, but not in so much that it'll change our answer. I think Emmanuel Quickley has a chance to be maybe a one-time All-Star, probably not two. He sort of projects as that guy who might sneak in on a big year. But I don't think it'll be likely he sneaks in as a one-time All-Star. So one.
And that's so if we're looking at the roster, that means you think it's just Scottie. So this team has to change radically in the future.
So RJ Barrett, very good player, but I think even as he improves, it's not going to change his numbers other than efficiency. Like his points, his rebounds, I don't see that budging too much from his highs in New York. And he never got All-Star buzz. People don't say, "Oh, he's more efficient this year." He's not. No, it's not really like that.
We say that.
We say that. That's for us little nerds, not for All-Star voters. Emmanuel Quickley, like I said, Grady Dick is, I think, a really fun one to talk about.
Man.
A really fun one to talk about. I don't know. This preseason was fun. Maybe. What do you think about Grady? Do you think Grady Dick could be an All-Star ever?
So Jakob is great. We love Jakob, but he's not going to make an All-Star team. You look around the roster, nobody makes sense as, with a bullet the way that Scottie does. But also, you look at the quad fellas of Jacoby, Grady, Emmanuel, and RJ. It makes you feel like you want to take a flyer on one guy. So we'll make it easier, and then we can dig down a little bit. But if I gave you an option over under those four, do you take 1 or 0? Or I guess 0.5. I don't know how the hell.
I take 0. Okay. But I think
I take 1.
You take 1? I think it's close for IQ. And I think Grady is fun to talk about, but a lot of stuff needs to break right.
Yeah.
Probably in 100 universes, right? We're looking at maybe 30 times they get 1, right? Maybe 5 universes they get 2 out of that group. You never know. But I think in the plurality, the majority of these multiverses, I think we're looking at just Scottie.
Probably, but I'm still. Well, I shouldn't say
you want
probably, 1 because no, I want 1, and the reason for that is that development is really hard to kind of pen in. It can't even really be penciled in. Look at Scottie Barnes, for example, right? How he is panned out as a prospect, I think to some people is what they expected. Way less people, if you look at what they thought pre-draft. And where he is now is a completely different player from what people thought he would be. I mean, the most common one was like a Draymond comp. And that was a very lofty comp. That's probably a Hall of Fame player. That's one of the greatest defenders of all time. But he's just like a wing initiator now in a way that Draymond would never be. He's eclipsed so much of what players that he used to be compared to have done. Ben Simmons used to be a lofty expectation for him, and he completely punted that. He stiff-armed that away. So in the case of Emmanuel Quickley, in the case of RJ Barrett, in the case of Grady Dick, in the case of Jacoby Walter, who we really haven't seen much of, but maybe the shooting is special enough to be funny. Development is too hard to track, I think, to say no to all four. I'm going to go with one, and I'm going to be the likelihood, I think, is probably Emmanuel Quickley, and being in the assist farm, playing next to Scottie Barnes. There's going to be plenty of shots for him. There's going to be a lot of assists, and the stats might say yes to Emmanuel. But I would go under on Emmanuel alone, but as the four, that's what I'm going with. Here's the thing about projections, about development. We had a really, really good, I think, question from Spain PNR on Twitter. And this one, I mean, I love talking about development. I love talking about how guys are getting to spots on the floor. I love talking about all that kind of stuff. Here we go from Spain PNR. Quote, Gradey isn't the dead eye he was projected yet, but seems to be much more as you know, a slasher / mid-range scorer. Scottie was similar, where the offense was much better and the defense was much worse. Is there something about the NBA that sends prospects down different paths, or were these misevaluations? End quote. That is a really good question. I think that Scottie, for the people who were paying attention, did more of a 180 than Gradey did. I think Gradey, if you look at the first pieces that we wrote, if you look at his pre-draft evaluation, if you look at even just Raptors Republic's coverage of him, a lot of this stuff was expected, and a lot of this stuff was present at Kansas. And even Bobby Webster said that he considers Gradey in his own grouping as an off-ball type of player. And very early on, the Raptors were talking about how they wanted to get him doing on-ball stuff. Empty side pick and rolls, where he made the check down pass, all this stuff where he ran off ball at Kansas. This kind of stuff could be seen, and the touch at the rim was always quite good. Scottie, though, especially with the struggles early defensively and the fact that he was just kind of like power bombing his way to baskets in the half court and in transition when a lot of people were very down on his offense, that is a very interesting one. I will push it to you. Are we talking about the NBA dictates change because it is the ultimate league, or are we talking about misevaluations?
There's something about life that makes it hard to project the future, you know? Like, we're looking through mud anyway when we're trying to be like, what's this going to be? You know, I compare it to, because there's so many stages. I compare it to getting my toddler dressed to leave the house, because I just did that like an hour ago. It's not just, okay, you get dressed, then you go. Because then, you know, maybe you're 10 minutes late because getting dressed takes time. No, it's, you have to put underwear on. That might take 10 extra minutes. Then you have to put pants on. That you have to change. Maybe he doesn't want those pants. Maybe he takes them off once you put them on. Then a shirt. Then everything widens the window of possible chaos. Entropy is always lurking. And when you're projecting a guy in college, on one hand, you know, whatever you've been in your life as a basketball player before the league, it's like 10 guys a year, maybe less, who come into the league and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing that I've always done. For the vast majority of players, it's like, no, you have to do something. Yeah, you have to do something totally different now. It's like Wemby and LeBron. You can do what you've always done. Everyone else, shape up. And so that's something that makes it hard. Also, time, right? Time changes people. You never know what'll happen. You never, like, look at Markelle Fultz's injury, right? That just like time is a window that adds possible error into projection. You know, sports psychology and humanity, teammates, context, coaching. And when you just add on layer and layer and layer, it's like, yeah, maybe it takes 10 minutes to get dressed, or maybe I'm going to be 5.5 hours late to a lunch date because I had to put clothes on. It's like, it's just entropy will dictate a lot of this stuff. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we should almost be more impressed by successful evaluation than by misevaluations, given what reality has to throw at us.
I think so. And the interesting thing with Scottie, you talk about context and teammates and stuff. At the top end, only 4 guys get to do what they like. There is, Scottie is maybe, and this again, I could be retrofitting. This is looking backwards, knowing what has happened. But he played with Moses Moody and Cade Cunningham. And Cade Cunningham was the guy for years. So at Montverde, Scottie didn't get to be that. Scottie, as we understand now, is extremely adaptable. As RJ Barrett said, the most unselfish superstar he's ever played with. Scottie kind of lets the team be, and he won't impose himself necessarily everywhere. And we're seeing how that's changing for him lately, but it seems like there was a lot of latent ability and talent to do that stuff that some people did pick up on pre-draft, that some people did comment on pre-draft. But the overwhelming consensus was that he's the second banana to the incredible players he had shared the court with. He came off the bench at at Florida State. Like these are very unique things. So, a credit to the Raptors for probably seeing a fair bit of that latent stuff, and also for allowing, and geez, all the credit in the world to Scottie for being able to take this and step forward into these roles and just keep doing better and better. Like if anybody after this stream wants to go to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel and watch my video essay on Scottie Barnes pick and roll, he went from 39th percentile in the NBA to 80th percentile in the NBA on healthy volume. Yeah. This is not a small thing. This is a wing creator who people said wasn't a wing creator. This is a guy who's scoring on ball who people said wouldn't score on ball. And this is a guy who's combining all those things with the correct pre-draft evaluation that he's an incredible passer, one of the best in the world, and he's becoming kind of all-powerful with it. He's very interesting to watch. We have a comment in chat that kind of pairs well with the Gradey thing. Do you think Gradey should look into a one motion shot versus his two motion shot? And we'll keep this on the Gradey thing about him being a dead eye. So I just went and I didn't count up exactly how many of his threes in preseason were heavy motion, but I watched all the threes because I wanted to see above the break versus corner threes. I wanted to see the pull-ups. And
I counted that.
Yeah.
They were all above the break in preseason. They shifted.
Yeah. 11 of 28 from above the break. So 39% above the break threes. Consider how much motion is involved in what he's doing. That's tremendous. He was 1 of 7 from the corner. That's what is tanking his percentages. And if you look at the difficulty of the shots that Gradey is taking and the amount, like he still came away at 34% 3-point shooting in the preseason, which that's not gangbusters. But you look at the types of shots, and it is that Gradey is more than just a shooter. And that means probably he's not just going to be like 42% from 3. He might be 37% from 3 on high volume, on super high difficulty, with the ability to always get downhill versus a closeout, with the ability to finish at the rim with touch, with the ability to play make with man advantage, like odd man advantages. That's the kind of stuff that is developing. I think that's the kind of stuff that is very patently true about his game. And also, as I mentioned, 63% on his pull-up twos. As Tenzin says, do you think Gradey could look in or should look into a one motion shot versus two motion shot? I don't think so. I think like we're far enough down the road. He's already been touted as like a tremendous shooting prospect. And even though it's 34%, I know which threes I think are more important. It's above the break, and it's not close. Danilo Gallinari didn't shoot that many corner threes in his career, but there's a lot of guys who shoot above the break threes. They allow you more playmaking options. They allow you more framework options. They allow you way more opportunities to affect change. So 39% on above the break threes. It may not be elite, but I think he is elite at what he's doing. Maybe not by the numbers, but I have loved the Gradey stuff.
He also shot like 50% from the corners last year. Like the 1 of 7 from the corner. Yeah. Who cares? Like that doesn't mean anything.
He didn't shoot well from the corners in college either, which is a weird thing.
Yeah.
And shot better
last year was a big enough volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about that. It's the above the break stuff. They really shifted his, where everything was coming from for him, which I really liked.
There's something you can really enjoy, especially like the Raptors. They've started running more Miami stuff. And so basically a Chicago action is you're coming from the corner and you run off a screen into a handoff. Zoom. And that is zoom, Chicago zoom, whatever you want to call it. The Raptors call it wide zoom. You can hear Darko on the broadcast. That's what they're doing. That's where it starts a little bit higher on the floor. Miami is where you take the handoff directly and then come off of a ball screen. The Raptors, what they've started to do is shift more of their shooters into that first handoff, use their big as the release valve, as the screen, and are having their guys make off of ball screens more often than dribble handoffs. I like that change, quite frankly, and it's going to press these guys, to stay on the development topic. It's going to press them into more live dribble reads. It's going to press them into more adaptable play styles. And I think that's very, very interesting for them. Is there any other fun little Gradey things before we move on that you've noticed?
Last year it was about 40% of his threes were in the corner. Preseason, it was less than 20. It was less than 15. It was 14%. It was crazy how much shifted above the break. And I think we've been talking about process for Gradey for a long time. I've heard you say it a million times. I've said it a million times. Even when he was playing really badly to start the year, the process was great. It did dwindle a little. It seemed like he got in his own head before he went down to the G League. But his process was better for longer than his actual results. And then he came back and the results were great. But, man, the process this preseason was spectacular. It was the type of process that said, you know what? Maybe this guy does get an all-star nod. He met a dude above the rim. It was crazy. He looks different, man. He's bouncy. He's stalwart defensively, according to Brooklyn's broadcast. I was just really
That was a great broadcast, by the way.
It was super fun.
Yeah. Calling him, they're like, he lives a good life, man. He just shoots it whenever he touches it. He just gets shots up. They compared him to Kobe Bryant, not in play style, but in irreverence for moving the ball. Just get the shot up and see what happens. He's been an absolute blast. And again, when you're preaching process about a guy for so long, you just want data. You just want film. You just want to see stuff. So Gradey coming into this and putting up 10 3-point attempts per 36, putting up 20 shots per 36 and just gunning the hell out of it. That's what you love to see. And interesting, here's a fun one from Blake Murphy, quote, "How have you evaluated the Raptors' quality of screening this preseason, given how large a weakness that often was last year?" End quote. I will start with you on this because I know you love paying attention to screens. Big old screen.
Jakob Poeltl. I'm a big screen guy. Jakob Poeltl is tremendous. Just so strong. His attention to detail there is really phenomenal. I wasn't really impressed with anyone else.
Yeah.
I think Quickly is a very strong screener, but obviously he came in a little slow last night. I think he's a very strong flex and back screener in particular. After the OG trade and before the Pascal trade last year, the Raptors really ran a ton of offense through that flex screening from Quick, and he actually was one of the most efficient flex screening options in the NBA for this short stretch. You didn't see a ton of it last night. Who cares, right? He's first game back from injury. Gradey, I think, could be a very strong screener given what he offers, but I didn't see a ton of it. I think Scottie just has he doesn't like to stay in the screen. He likes to go get the ball and sort of jet out of it. I don't know. I think Ochai actually was the one guy other than Yak who popped a little.
Well, Ochai's been popping as a screener since the moment he came to the Raptors. He's always been very strong. The give a shit stuff, Ochai has always been very strong. He's just making layups now. And that's a huge thing because when you're running actions with Scottie Barnes and it's a step-up switch, that means you're under both of the players at the level. You get to seal. You might be able to catch going downhill. You might be able to slip into different types of space and make plays with man advantages. And Ochai was put in so many, and same with the empty side stuff too last year. He's just put in so many winning positions and he just didn't have it. And during the preseason, 16 points in back-to-back games. Those are both that's the most he scored as a Raptor. I think 14 was his season high last year in a Raptors jersey. He's always been good at planting it, knowing what to do afterwards. It's just about scoring once the ball is in your hand or making a progressive read. That's the good thing about Ochai. Yeah, Jakob. He's gonna make it happen. He's not Domas Sabonis, and it's on that the skip play, the Dan Hurley, like that was Domas Sabonis, where Jakob was like throwing to Gradey way out, and then he just went out to track Derek White and throw him as far off as possible from chasing Gradey. Like, that's great screening. He adapted. Instead of being like, I'm waiting for Gradey, he's like, that guy is so far behind Gradey. I don't want Gradey to slow down. I want to pitch him the ball, and I want to go find that guy and create a chasm of space. Tremendous screening. As you said, Scottie, a lot of the players on the Raptors, they want to get loose. They don't want to sit there and hang in it. And I think we probably do disagree on the efficacy of Emmanuel overall, which is fine. But that is something that they're playing guys who are better at screening right now, and that's something that, you know, is going to help. And it's an offense that you can't necessarily just pay attention to the screens next to the ball. They run a ton of Spain. They're running a bunch of off-ball screens, and also Grady's been pretty good at sticking back screens in Spain. Like, but for the same reason that his defense isn't translating, because Valley reads the floor yet, he's not able to stick screens that effectively because he's just quite
not big enough.
And I think that also applies to Emmanuel quickly. To stay on this topic, asked by Trey, my wonderful co-host, pull up Trey. Not Paul Trey, quote, why do you think Scottie and Gradey actions have been more productive than Scottie and IQ actions? So I will, again, that's to you, Louis, because I know you've covered this and you've written about this and you've thought about this a lot. Curious where you stand on this.
So there's a thing to draw a distinction there. The Scottie quickly actions actually were very productive one way, with Scottie handling and quickly screening. Those were excellent last year, especially when it was a double screen, like a staggered screen, which the Raptors loved.
The shallow.
Yeah. The Raptors loved getting a guard in there when they had Yak screening for Scottie, which makes sense, right? They just add a little complexity when you have these two non-shooters, and quickly was the best there. And also just when it was quickly screening for Scottie, that 4-1 pick and roll that the Raptors ran with Fred and Pascal, also, you know, excellent with Scottie and Quick. It never really clicked the other way with Scottie screening for quickly. And I think there were a bunch of reasons for that. And it actually gets at the heart of the question. I think Scottie and quickly do need a little bit more role definition together. They both understand what the offense requires of them as individuals, but I think that they're still figuring out what the offense requires of them as a unit. Scottie knows he's the man. Quickly knows Scottie's the man, but quickly also knows he's the point guard. And Scottie isn't that good as like a screening guy where the ball's not coming to him. Like if he's just going to set a screen and roll and not touch the ball, there's better guys in the league at that, better guys on the team at that. And so there's a lot of reasons why it hasn't really connected. I still think it will. I really do still believe in the pairing, even though the data's piling up that, you know, it's not very wonderful yet. Whereas Scottie Gradey, it's very clear role definition. Like there's no questions. It's just everyone knows immediately without any thought. Also, Gradey's bigger. That does matter, particularly when Scottie's handling. Gradey cuts more than Quickly. Quickly's a good cutter. Gradey is an excellent cutter. He's always moving. And, you know, when he's cutting off of that, you know, rejected handoff or whatever, he has an extra 6 inches to get the ball from. That really matters. And I think he is just a higher volume shooter right now than Quickly is. He just gets him up when he touches them. There's a bunch of reasons why I think it looks like cleaner chemistry. But although I do still believe that the Scottie Quickly 2-man game has, you know, more latency there. There should be more.
Role definition is a great way to put it. And honestly, like the thing is, holy smokes, there's something going on up there. Anyway, so the thing about it is that role definition. The thing about it is that Gradey, he is not beholden to anything except Scottie in that moment. And Gradey is not beholden to so much on the court Like they have their set plays where he's very, hey, you're doing this, and he runs it, and he really there's a lot of pace, there's a lot of execution in how he comes off screens. It's improved measurably since he came into the NBA, but otherwise he's kind of like he's different than IQ, whereas IQ hovers in case the play has to reset. Gradey is like, I just want to get into, an ounce of space and see what happens. I want to drag people all over the court. I want to see what I can do. And so Scottie rewards one of those plays far more than the other. And so there's just a more natural tandem there. And as you say, like Scottie being able to run that double drag, them shallowing it with a shooter off an IQ, like that highlight dunk that Scottie had last night, where he shouldered him out of the way and dunked from almost the free throw line. Incredible play. However, what went unnoticed is that
Quickly was wide open.
Quickly shallowed the cut, and the Nets had no idea how to guard it. And shallowing that 77, like that double drag, is not exactly new, but it's a wrinkle. And sometimes teams, if you just throw a wrinkle, they botch it. And the Raptors have gotten quickly open on that spot of the court many times. And they will, with Scottie on ball, continue to get him open many, many times. And Gradey will continue to orbit around Scottie. Whereas IQ, the best part for his game is to orbit around Jakob. So there's a little bit there. They need work, but these types of things will increase in volume, and I think they will increase in efficacy. And again, back to that point about development, is that Scottie was projected as screen, short roll, catch. You're such a big basketball brain, one of the best passers, like front court passers in the world. You make the read against the man advantages, or pound dribble, dunk on somebody, like press it that way.
Yeah.
Scottie doesn't care that much about that. In the same way that
Draymond
hits the guy. In the same way that Giannis doesn't, he's not super into screening, rolling, catching. Like Giannis is like, give me the ball. I'd like to do something with it. And when you're the best player on the team,
the guy, why don't you hit the guy?
Yeah, you hit the guy. You're the guy who hits guys. I'm the guy who scores the ball. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in like I'm so great way. But when you're one of the best players in the world, which Scottie is well on track to being, which Giannis did before him, it's like, I'm not a roll man. I'm a roll man. You know, whatever the hell it is. Yeah,
I love that.
That's a super, super funny one. Here's a super funny question from the sixth man. And I have the measurements, so don't worry about this. If you took the average physicals and measurements of an adult male gorilla and inputted that into a lineup of IQ, Scottie, RJ, and Jakob, what would their approximate player efficiency rating be? So I have this written down. The average male gorilla is 300 pounds and up to 6 feet tall. What kind of role do you think this has in the NBA?
I'm sorry, are we spreading 300 pounds across 3 people?
No, it's a gorilla. The gorilla is the fifth starter. And the gorilla weighs 300 pounds. He's 6 feet tall, and he's
Danny
the fifth
DeVito
starter.
Is the fifth starter.
He's like, it's like if you hit it's not the shrink ray, it's the whatever the opposite of shrink is on Danny DeVito.
Yeah,
I'm the trash man. Yeah, and except he plays basketball now.
Yeah.
What role do you think a gorilla has on the court?
It would be the greatest guard screener in the history of basketball.
We're talking about. Fred
VanVleet with a club, just absolutely smashing people. That's Danny DeVito.
So Scottie is like, I'm the guy who scores the ball. The gorilla is like, I'm the guy who hits guys. You're the guy. Like the role definition is very simple. So while I don't think the finishing would be that good, he certainly lacks touch at the rim, but he's very fast. And so this is kind of what we're waiting on, right? Can you land the screens? And I think on the other side, this is a very unique role. I think he's a ball pressure guard. You know, gorillas are quick.
Do you know how hard it would be to whiff on a screen as a gorilla? You would need to be literally the worst. You would have to actively dance out of the way. You would you'd be trashing people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. PER.
Yeah, the ball pressure. Yeah.
13 or 14 PER. because I don't expect it to be above average. Oh, so Dick in chat says a gorilla has an arm span of 8 feet, OG level defense. That the arm span is crazy. I'm going ball pressure. I don't want that backside help. I want a ball pressure guard out of my gorilla.
There's strength too, right? Like the
Yes.
amount of strength per pound. Something like dogs are like 2 times humans, and gorillas are like 8 times or more. It's I think it would be probably an unfair advantage.
They would win a lot, but I don't expect PER is so heavily weighted towards offense. I wouldn't expect it to be good. However, his on-offs,
a lot of winning
would be
Yeah.
the on-offs would be tremendous, I think. Okay, a question from here's a good one. From Hopeful TTF Maple, quote, why do you think they can field a top 12 offense throughout the entirety of the season, given the amount of youth factoring into execution? So I had said they could be around top 12. I said they could be around 12, I think early on an earlier podcast before everybody got injured. Some of that is kind of up in the air now, I think, and we'll see if everybody comes back healthy and what that looks like. But I do feel pretty strongly about the Raptors being, I guess, a top half of the league, half-court offense. Do you think that's wrong? And if you do, why?
I think that might be wrong, but not because of our analysis of the team, its system, and the players. Just because of how do I say this? The big picture impetus that might drive the Raptors to lose some games.
Not impetus. What the hell is that?
Impetuses is not a thing.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. But
impetus, you just say impetus. The big picture impetus.
You're an impetus, dude. They when healthy. I think given their actual starters, the juice they have in the young, like the Gradey and the Ochai, what it looks like often, I think it can be reasonable to expect that. It seems like they're not going to get 70 plus games out of all these guys. And it seems like if they do, the Raptors might solve that problem. You ever seen that scene in The Exorcism of Emily Rose?
I didn't watch.
I think it's a priest
I don't watch
comes
horror,
up
man. I
with
don't
like
got
a sledgehammer walking up to like Emily Rose lying in the bed.
Oh my!
He's like, we gotta take that foot off. He's like, thunk. That could be. Maybe if they're healthy, the team solves that problem.
Holy smokes! Damn, I didn't know it was. I didn't know it was so hardcore. Something that didn't get asked, but I think I'm selfishly going to ask us ourselves is the 15th man. What the back end of the roster looks like. We're coming up on decision time. I'd like to get something on wax beforehand. There's obviously people who listen to this afterwards, and decisions may have been made, but so we'll spell it out. So Bruno Fernando is on a $2 million minimum. That could get cut. That could stay. Jamias Ramsey is on an Exhibit 10. They do not have his 905 rights. Of course, they could trade for them. They could make that happen. It's not that difficult to set up, but that's currently where it is. Jared Rhoden, Exhibit 10, and they have his 905 rights. Jameson Battle, Exhibit 10. They have his 905 rights. Brandon Carlson is on a two-way. DJ Carton is on a two-way. Ulrich Shamshay is on a two-way. What does the end of this roster look like to you?
I hope that they reward Battle and keep him in-house. He's on an Exhibit 10.
He's 15. He's like signed.
I would like them to give Battle a contract. There are two ways right now, as you said, Carton, Shamshi, and Carlson. I would love if Carton got, but they already have those guys on the roster. Battle, if they send down to the 905, another team can sign him, right? That you have no control as an NBA player. If you sign them in the 905, there's just because he's on an Exhibit 10 contract doesn't even mean he goes to the 905. If you waive him from the camp spot, he isn't a financial incentive, but another team could still offer him a contract. I think Battle has been by a wide margin the best of the non two-way, non-already team-controlled guys. And the shooting can pop. Like, guys who already shoot that well can find real NBA. Like, look at Max Strus, right? Like, look at Duncan Robinson. I'm not saying the Battle will become those guys.
Yep.
But there's a path for guys who were not NBA players who their shooting got them a look and then developed on rosters. And then, man, they're real guys that are making a ton of money. I don't think the Raptors will go that way. I think they'll probably just sign Fernando for just team construction reasons. But I would like them to reward Battle for his play, and I also think he's a guy they want to keep in house going forward, and this is probably the only certain way to do that.
So it is interesting, the perspective, right? Is that Jamison Battle, do you think he was taking easy 3-point shots?
Yes.
Or difficult one? Yes. So he shot, I believe, 34% from 3 in preseason. And he is, I think currently, I just looked it up on Synergy, and it said 34%, 12 of 35. Now, maybe Synergy is gumming it up. I don't know exactly. But there's a reason you respond. If that is true, you responded in a certain way. You probably would have thought 40, right?
55 at least.
Yeah, people have been responding like Jamison Battle is the gunner of all gunners. I still think it's like he's not so much of a home run.
No, he shot 57% from preseason.
What the hell am I looking
from
at
3? I'm looking it up. He shot 57.1% from 3.
What? I wonder, why does it say 12 of 35 for
his total? I mean, just look up the actual. He shot 8 of 14.
What am I missing here? Oh, that's so funny. Okay, here we go. My bad. I figured, okay, so here's the thing. How embarrassing for me. I loaded Jamison Battles, and it loaded Gradey's thing again. So, hey, everybody. He's actually the best shooter.
Yes, 57.
Okay, so 57%. Don't ever let the stats fool your eyes. You know what I mean? A cursory glance at the statistical page. Never, ever let it fool you. So here's the thing. So James Battle shoots 57% from 3. Well done. And he shot, it seemed like he shot like 55 or 65, like somewhere in that range at Summer League as well. Okay, so he's shooting the hell out of the basketball. I have worries about the defense. I have worries about that kind of stuff. But yeah, well, 57%, it's really tough to turn your nose at.
NBA level skill.
Yeah, NBA 100%.
Does
NBA
Bruno Fernando have an NBA level skill?
He has a couple of them. A lot of them revolve around his size. But
I mean, he's tall. His NBA level skill is being tall.
He's tall, and he's, thick. Condensed Poppy in chat says, so Battle is a better 3-point shooter than Gradey. Standstill? I think so, yes.
Yeah. He took much easier shots. Much easier shots.
He took much easier
far fewer.
shots. Yeah, and far fewer. But I will say, like, again, it's egg on my face for the stat page didn't load correctly, and I took it at face value. Egg on my face, but I can't say 57%. Like, and every time I've seen Jamison Battle, he shot the ball well. So regardless, I think he is a better standstill 3-point shooter, which is an important skill. And Gradey's overall shooting is more important, and that I think is represented in how the team values everybody. But yeah, Jamison is 15th. I don't know who I want most. I was thinking that the Raptors would end up picking Ramsey or Fernando. Battle, I think there's you were talking about it in terms of rewarding him. And I think that is important on some level. And is important to people like me and you, is important to Jamison, is important to fans. But I think the team may do it differently. Like they might be in talks about, how much interest is there in him? Can we get him down to the 905? What can that look like? All this kind of stuff. There could be a swapped out 2-way, like Brandon Carlson could lose his spot, like that kind of stuff. So as much as I've made a little bit of a fool of myself regarding Jamison, I wouldn't be mad at the 15th roster spot going to him, but I think my lean, not for my own preference, but I think the way that things are structured is it ends up being Bruno or Ramsey. Does that seem wrong to you? Like as far as a
No,
predictive?
I think Ramsey played pretty well. I think his jumper looks better than it did last year. Not good, but fine.
Better.
Like not something that's a problem when he's shooting, particularly from the corner. I thought his corner three looked pretty solid. And defensively, he is one of the crew there. Like the Raptors picked up a lot of guys who dig that
Yep.
ball pressure philosophy. You know, Shed, Mitchell, Carton, Ramsey. That's a squad of guys who can do what Rajakovic or Rajakovic.
I'm pretty sure it's Rajakovic.
So that's a squad.
I said it wrong in the video essay I put.
Yeah, I listened to your video. That's a squad who can do what the coach is wanting them to do. I think Fernando did not play well. I don't like rostering guys who don't help you. Like Malik Williams last year, I would rather of them just not had a center. You know, yeah.
It was tough, man.
That's not a criticism of him. He was playing against starting NBA bigs. That's not fair for a guy who wasn't a strong G League player. Like that's just not fair. And I think Bruno just didn't perform well enough that the team would want him on the floor for them. Whereas Ramsey did and Battle did.
Yeah. The Battle stuff, the limitations outside of shooting, I think will hold them back. And also I think the defense stuff is a little bit more than what's on tape. I think also there's been struggles to get that from him as far as attention to detail and all that kind of stuff. So, but the Bruno Fernando thing is basically just quote unquote team need. This team needs a big. Is that guy going to be our big? And as Condensed Poppy wrote here, quote, I think Fernando will come around. We need a backup center. We will use this as an opportunity. We've kind of discussed this point. It will be announced soon, I think. Today is the day. So live listeners, hell yeah. I'm glad to have discussed it. People afterwards, come and tell us why we were wrong. There's a question here from ND Talks Ball. Quote, what are your thoughts on Mobo's role in the half court so far? Personally, I'm not sure how him sitting in the corner as a non-shooter benefits the team or him. And I'll read this again. What are your thoughts on Mobo's role in the half court so far? Personally, I'm not sure how him sitting in the corner as a non-shooter benefits the team or him, and I'm not sure how having Kelly Olynyk could change that still. Wow, that was an odyssey of my reading. I was like that kid who's sweating in class, having trouble reading okay, so anyway.
You were having another seizure.
Oh, Lord in heaven, man. So I'll take this. Actually, I've been talking for a little bit. You take this. What do you thought of Mogbo?
I actually learned a really important lesson. I think I learned this last year, maybe earlier, but there are ways that teams can benefit players who are not the most important players. I think the Raptors could make Mogbo look a lot better.
They could.
But what are you sacrificing for the team? And so I think the lesson I learned is you don't prioritize the guys who don't help the team the most. Prioritizing Scottie makes the team look best. Prioritizing quickly makes the team look best. It helps everybody else develop. And they are definitely playing Mogbo in a role that he hasn't played in before. There's a lot of choppiness. You see record skips. I'm actually writing a piece about him right now. I'm just waiting to publish basically. And, there's some tape that does not look wonderful, but why are they standing him in the corner? Because what else are they going to do? Play him at center where he's comfortable. And then Yak's not playing and your defense is handicapped. You don't really have that backline sweeper. The screening is a little weaker. I think that hurts the sort of the process for other guys. Right now, I actually think I really like him at center long-term, but it's just not really what would help the Raptors the most at the moment. So it makes sense to me that they've played him out of position for the good of everyone else. And I think he needs to learn it. He needs to learn to shoot. He needs to learn to defend on the wing. He needs to learn to cut, to drive. That is all stuff that has to happen. So Ask him to do it now. Why not?
He had two really great plays of isolation defense. One against Jason Tatum, another
Oh,
against
it picked
Jaylen
him on
Brown.
the snatchback?
Yeah, that was on Jaylen Brown, and he forced Jason Tatum into a hell of a shot to end the first half in Toronto. Great defense, active hands, quick feet, is long and slides with these guys. That's like a great indicator. You want to see that, but there's been a lot of miscommunications when he's guarding in two-man actions. There's been some mistiming as far as like a back-end guy.
Switching,
And
yeah,
yes,
it's ugly.
all that kind of stuff. And as you say, the Raptors could make him look a lot better. The role that Kelly Olynyk plays is the role that Mogbo plays. And when Kelly Olynyk got injured and Scottie wasn't there, and like or Scottie or IQ wasn't there, and there was room for Mogbo to step into that four-man, he actually looked great running delay, rebounding the basketball, making plays, throwing hit-aheads, like pushing.
Yeah.
There's stuff Mogbo does at an NBA level. It's just that the Raptors, one, don't necessarily need it from him right now, and they obviously value that stuff paired with wing skills from their 6'7" player. So he's being put in a very tough position that will probably benefit him in the end, because I think there's a really good comparison. 2019-20, the COVID shortened season, Eric Pascal plays for the 15-50 Golden State Warriors. Curry is injured. Clay is injured. They have D'Angelo Russell for a little bit. They have Andrew Wiggins. That's the first year he comes over, and Pascal is 6th in Rookie of the Year voting. 14 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2 assists. He's not exactly Jonathan Mogbo, but it's like kind of a biggie wing who's going to get downhill, who's going to kind of muck it up, who's going to provide that kind of stuff. And he was out of the league. His third season was his last. And that's because it was a bad team that just said, we'll let this guy get his touches. We'll let him do his thing. And the numbers went up. And Mogbo could put up numbers in the NBA on playing bad basketball. They're trying to get him to play, and he's played great basketball at the collegiate level. To play it, as we talked about with development earlier, it's going to necessitate change. Is he capable of doing so? That remains to be seen, but he's adaptable. He's willing. He's well-liked. Well, and there's clearly latent stuff there. We'll see how it turns out. But the role is a huge swing for him. That's obvious to me. That's massive.
He hasn't hit a three, but I don't mind his. Like, I love him taking them. I don't mind his jumper. I think it'll come along.
That's it could. I would never rule out a standstill shooter.
Yeah, uncontested, wide open corner threes. Why not?
Yeah, anybody can make that. And
dude, I hit those shots.
Too. Yeah, and here's the thing too, and we'll talk about Ochai just in a little bit, but Ochai is kind of occupying a role that they want Mogbo to occupy. And you think about how often Ochai is getting to the rim, how many of his finishes are in transition or off of cuts. Like, that role is available in this Raptors scheme offensively. And you play next to Scottie Barnes. If you're in a window, he'll hit the ball through it, And this takes us to a question from Curly, dear friend, patron saint of basketball in Toronto. Quote, Darko had mentioned that he's less focused on Ochai shooting and more focused on his defense. Given how the preseason has gone, appears to have some success. Thoughts? I'll take this one. I've been very, not overly critical of Ochai, but just kind of no nonsense pointing at the numbers. Like, hey, good things are happening, but he doesn't finish any plays. He couldn't finish at the rim, couldn't finish in short mid-range, shot 22% from 3. And while I like the defense, I like the hustle aspect. We talked about his screening earlier. There's a lot of stuff to like. It just, if you don't score and you take easy shots and miss them, you're going to crater what the the team is trying to do. That hasn't been the case. He's been making his layups. He has had less contested attempts at the rim. We'll see if that carries over to the regular season. He has scored the ball easily and without dictating that the ball find him. He has fit in very well. And as far as before Davion and Jamal hit the roster, he was their strongest point of attack defender. There's a lot of reasons for him to find minutes on this team.
May I add in a quick statistic, not to interrupt, he has shot 18 of 23 from 2-point range. 18 of 23. Sorry, please continue.
I was pretty much done, but yeah, that's the thing is if you make all your layups, good news. When Pascal was shooting 9% from three over a however many game span, that rubber banded, of course, he kept up all of his numbers stayed kind of in a decent spot last year. Why? Because he went the first 9 games missing one shot in transition. He was 27 of 28 in transition. So if you finish the easy stuff, you get to kind of swing wildly on the other stuff. And he has made sure that the floor of his game is significantly higher by doing so.
I think shooting and what a shooter's job requires. Oh, looks like the Raptors PR, they have waived Ramsey and Roden and Carlson. Okay.
Battle is going to be a two-way, probably.
The Raptors converted Battle to a two-way contract.
Jeez.
There you go.
There you go.
So look, they have not waived Fernando. So it looks like Fernando, 15th spot, Battle two-way. I really like Battle at least being on the roster. That's good. I like that. Do you mind just chatting for one moment?
Oh yeah, okay, I got you.
I just got to get someone writing that.
Or you can, if you want to write it, I can talk about it if there's nobody available. Okay, so anyway, yeah, Battle is going to be 905 and Raptors. So that means we're going to see him at the start of the season because the G League does not start up yet. Battle is going to find his way into NBA minutes. That's a fun thing. That's a great thing for him. Congrats to Jameson. And Brandon Carlson, I hope the Utah Utes all-time block leader finds his way onto a roster or onto some place where he can continue trying to, further his career. He didn't get much of a shake with the Raptors. He certainly did in Summer League, but not in the preseason. He didn't get much of an opportunity to play to his game. And again, this is what we've talked about. Sometimes you have to bend more than the team. And that's kind of how it shakes out, right? Any thoughts? I guess we can rehash it just quickly, but thoughts on this quickly?
Yeah, I think, Carlson is a shooter who didn't hit his shots, right? There's not a ton else that he offered on offense. And defensively, he had that block, but I don't think he showed out. I think Bruno defended better than he did in preseason. So I don't think that's a huge loss, big picture. Really happy Battle remains in-house. Ramsey waived, but Exhibit 10, so potentially could go to the 905 if they trade for his G League rights. I don't really have any issues with those roster moves at all.
Yeah. It says here that Brandon Carlson shot 34% from... No, I'm just making a joke about the earlier thing. Yeah, Carlson, I think, can shoot it, but it's the thing about shooting it at the NBA level. Not only do you have to have the requisite talent, you kind of have to have the gumption to take those shots and do it at the highest level. And that does affect guys. I will say, Bruno being on the roster, I think that speaks probably to where Kelly's health, like how much they want to play Kelly this year, probably a little bit. He's an older player at this point in time, and also speaks to a little bit of what they view Mogbo as. Like, they drafted Mogbo with an intention of playing him as a wing. They're not going to let early beginnings shake that. So Bruno Fernando is on the roster to shore up anything on the, the big man side of things in case things go south. He is certainly more palatable than like Malik Williams. And that's I think that's why it shakes out that way. And because Jameson Battle shot the hell out of the basketball, the leather came off of it. He's getting a chance as a two-way player. Quickly, as the two-way players, do you have a favorite there? Do you think one guy will feature above all else?
I think Carton's the best player of the three.
Yeah.
But I think quickly Shed and Mitchell is actually like a very solid 3-point guard rotation. And I don't see Carton cracking that unless there's injury.
It's tough, man. And
yeah,
this is the interesting thing too, is about changing. Like, that was when I talked to DJ, was how he talked about how he had an idea of what he wanted to be as a player, and immediately the NBA dictated that it looked different for him. So And his ball pressure was actually, I think, phenomenal over the course of the preseason.
Yeah.
It's just he didn't play as well offensively as his G League statistics or the tape would say. He got to a lot of dangerous spots on the floor, but he didn't hit shots when he needed to, and that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. He'll have a lot of time with the 905 to like make stuff happen. So yeah, for people asking in chat, for people listening, the current makeup is that Jamison Battle is on a two-way, Ulrich Shamshay is on a two-way, DJ Carton is on a two-way, Bruno Fernando has the last spot on the roster, and
they didn't announce that they signed him. I think that's most likely, but it's still possible they could churn him and sign someone else.
Okay, so that's a potential thing. Jemias Ramsey and Jared Roden were both waived, but they hold the rights to Roden. Ramsey, we'll see what's happening. Shamshay is cozy. They drafted him. They're like, hey, man, like, you're going to have this two-way. You're going to play some basketball this year. He's like, all right, brother, I'm going to make it happen. We'll see what happens. But, yeah. Any final thoughts on that before we continue with the mailbag, etc.?
No, yeah, that's good. I think it's cool. Break it live. That was Raptors PR announcement, by the way. We weren't getting that from newsbreakers. Team announced. So yeah, that's cool.
Who is breaking the Jamison? Like, is Shams breaking Jamison Battle as a two-way? Probably
Blake,
not.
obviously. I mean, you could break that if you wanted to.
I don't know if I've got the Jamison Battle breaking news. So anyway, another question from Nesta, very loyal listener. Thank you for always tuning in, Nesta. Quote, won't be able to catch you live this time, but 3 questions for you. We may not answer all 3. Quote, who makes the team from the fringe guys, and why isn't it Bruno? Nesta, I'm so sorry. It was Bruno. Or, well, okay, it will probably be Bruno, but could end up being different. Also, are you/RR planning on having any events or gathering/watch parties this year and with this new venture for the company? And who would you keep on this team ahead of Lonnie Walker? I'm going to answer, I think for both of us probably, Lonnie Walker would be with a bullet who makes the roster for me. The only reason why he didn't make the Celtics is because of the salary cap implications. Signing him to a minimum would have cost the team like $11 million in penalties. And not all owners want to just pay an extra $9 million because I think that means that it's directly out of their pocket. That doesn't mean that it's the good thing to do. Lonnie Walker is an NBA player. He should be on an NBA roster. He's good enough. Louis, do you know anything about events or anything like that?
To be decided. Something that Better Collective is interested in. That the Nation Network, it's just companies all the way up. That the Nation Network is interested
all the way
in.
Down. Companies all the way
hasn't been decided, but I'm hopeful that we can continue.
Yeah, I would love, especially the 3-on-3 tournament. Vilifying Force says, what is wrong with Lonnie Walker? Teams keep dumping him. In this case, Lonnie wanted to be on a really good team. Yeah. It seems to me he helped swing a playoff game last year. And like, he's a player of some consequence, I think. He's an NBA level player. I don't think this is an indicator of what Lonnie is like. Lonnie, I think, is actually well regarded by other players, by coaches in the NBA, as far as what I know. And it's just money. Money is something in this world, and it just keeps popping up.
Like Gary Trent just signed a minimum contract. Like the financials were weird this summer. I think that's really all we're looking at.
A note from Condensed Poppy says, man, Lonnie Walker didn't shoot 57% from three-point line. That is true.
Might have shot 34% though.
Yeah, he might have shot 34%. He shot it against the Raptors. From Pascal Propaganda, quote, do you have any opinion on the perceived change in Mikal Bridges' jump shot and what insights from preseason actually matter? I was also shocked to learn that Bridges was 2 of 19 from 3 in preseason. Have you watched any Mikal Bridges jumpers? It looks different. It's like way more hitchy. And I don't.
It was
really
already
know
a little loopy though. He's like he shot a little like Rashard Lewis, not quite as pronounced.
Yes, that's a pretty good comp. He definitely was a guy who he has such a low dip, really like gets into his motion. But yeah, 2 of 19. If this were happening without like without any tweaks or whatever, then I'd be like, well, you miss some shots, you make some shots, you know. But the fact that it's being toyed around with, I don't know. He's a pretty established shooter.
Yeah.
And he's not only an established shooter, but he is not so much, you know, like he can sprint into places, but he can catch off a pin down, throw a head dribble into a pull up reliably. Tweaking the jumper, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why you do that. But
If I'm an NBA front office guy,
mhm.
not to say this is what happened in this circumstance, but how furious would you be in the offseason that these players who are already excellent keep working with these hack trainers who are like, yeah. What you need, you shot 38% from 3 in the NBA. Who cares? This is what you need to change. Because this is the thing, man. In the offseason, in the season, teams have their control. Like they're keeping guys tight. There's team representatives. Like, you know, in the Soviet Union, there was always like a political representative everywhere with everything. It's the same in the NBA. Teams have their watchers everywhere in the season, but in the summer, guys can go places. They can get some changes going, and the team's like, you're not always in control of that. Not to say I have no idea what happened with Mikal Bridges. I haven't even watched him play this preseason, but yeah, that can happen.
Yeah. So what are the insights from preseason that actually matter? Like what sticks around? Also, you had
training schedules.
Yes.
I do.
You know what's funny? Or I'll say this to Coco. Listen, Louis on this very podcast has described himself as an authoritarian before. It was years ago.
As a parent.
No, as a dog owner. That's how you described yourself. As an authoritarian dog owner. He's an authoritarian with his dog Millie. Anyway, are you an authoritarian as a parent? I suppose most parents are.
I think flexibility in the things that are able to be flexed is really important. Like, no, man, you don't have to put your pants on first. You can put your shirt on first. But flexibility in the important things, like after you use the bathroom, you got to wash your hands. No, you got to be authoritarian about that.
Okay. So what's important from the preseason?
I think style of play is important. Like generally, if a guy is screening more often, I think that matters. I don't try to pay too much attention to like percentages or, you know, this guy's running a ton of ISOs. It's like, well, maybe they won't in the season. I think probably established guys, preseason matters a lot less, right? Like preseason is less meaningful for Scottie Barnes than for Ochai Agbaji. That's just pretty clear.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know. We all have to write on it, so we have to take things away from it no matter what. How about you? Yeah. What do you think preseason is most important for?
Yeah, process. Numbers are kind of whatever to me because it's such a short little thing. And there are some, as you said, play style. You can convey what you're going to do with intent and intensity. And it's pretty easy to tell what intent and intensity will carry over. And, you know, scoring or like being able to D up Jordan Poole from Grady Dick is not that important that he D'd up Jordan Poole. Yeah. But the fact that he's stepping out with the team and saying like, hey, we have higher pickup points this year. Ball pressure is more important. And that he's stalwart in the eyes of the Brooklyn Nets broadcast. Like these things, if Grady had not made any, it doesn't matter if he makes progress as a defender in this sense. It just matters that he's trying to do what the team asks of him. And that's real. And Grady, if he shot 22 threes over the course of preseason, over 5 games and shot 34%. It's like, well, that's fine. You know, maybe you didn't shoot it that well. But what you really like is not the numbers, but it's the amount. Well, I guess that's a little bit oxymoronic. It's not really it's not the percentage. It's not what. Anyway, you care that he kept going for it, that he was gunning. That belays information about mentality, all this kind of stuff. So what matters to me is that the intensity with which a lot of players brought to it, that they are really trying to nail down the little things, because there's a lot of players on this roster. This wasn't the shooting guard preseason roster. This wasn't the shooting guard summer league roster. this is a roster of guys who are looking to fill a role, who actually like were loyal to that role in preseason.
Yeah.
And they gave themselves to it. I think that's really good from a structure and hierarchy sense. That's really good in an authoritarian sense. And yeah, before we get into the next question, I will say 110 people in chat. Make sure to like the video. It helps promote it now and afterwards. And if you're wanting good things for the fellas over here and lots of listeners and viewers, that's just fine and dandy. Okay, we have from Notorious. What's the player archetype that you feel would be the perfect co-star for Scottie? We're gonna do some hypotheticals here. I'm gonna give this one to you. What is the perfect guy next to Scottie?
I mean, it's Steph Curry, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually that hard a question to answer. I think the player who creates the widest and the most frequent advantages, like obviously Giannis Antetokounmpo creates an insane number of advantages, but they're deeper in the court. They give space for decision making in different areas of the court than where Scottie Barnes is used to making his decisions. Whereas what Steph Curry creates, where the advantages are, is where Scottie is most comfortable and most dangerous making those decisions. So yeah, I mean, I think a wildly dangerous pull-up shooter who never stops moving, never stops cutting, also great catch and shoot, like just Steph Curry, right? And they went out and got the best simulacrum of that player that was available to them. Not to say that Emmanuel Quickley is anything like Steph Curry, but that archetype, there's not a lot of those players that you can just go get. And they found the best one that, they could given their situation. So it's clear that they're also trying to find this.
It seems pretty like it's transparent that they want shooting. And here's a really from Koki Surendran says, what about another wing? I do, just because of that wing defense thing, right? Having a wing who can step out a lot on guards, who can hold their own, like Herb Jones. I think Herb Jones next to Scottie is not the co-star, but God, is that a good fit? Like that makes so much sense. And they could combine truly to blanket what other stars want to do in initiation with Scottie and help and Herb on ball. Like there's a bunch of stuff like that's maybe a more niche answer. Steph and just like Donovan Mitchell is probably an unbelievable co-star for Scottie as well. There's lots of fun guys like that, but maybe on the more niche side, somebody like Herb Jones is like
or just
really intriguing.
If it's a co-star, why not ramp it up to take like Anthony Edwards, to be that on-ball guy, but also the ISO scorer, that elite driving. There's a couple things that the team needs besides Scottie, and you can dream bigger than Herb Jones, baby, for a co-star.
Yeah, and so Coco says, remember when we had wings at home? And Andy says, or OG Anunoby. Yeah, that's unfortunately it seems like the Steph Curry facsimile, or like half a facsimile, half simile, doesn't come over to the Raptors without OG going out the door, as it seems. And RJ has been really fun. Here's a good question from Gubstown, of the Gubstown Clink, who also listens a lot. And quote, amidst rebuilding hyperbole, we hear about establishing identity. Via preseason, we see that defense dictating time and space will be an exciting part of that going forward. What are other Raps' identity characteristics thus far? How do they compare to young teams like the Rockets, the Magic, and the Thunder? That is a really good question. Yeah. I'm curious what you've been picking up as what has been not only signaled as important, but what do you see as is clearly important out on the floor?
What's important is that if you pass the ball to someone and eventually there is a basket at any point later in the possession, you will get an assist for it. That's what's important to this team. 37 assists. I think there is an identity now. We do have big microphones. Get used to it. There is an identity on this team. I think the defensive identity is coming. It will It looks like the Raptors are not signing Jameson or not signing Bruno Fernando. Kevin O'Banner. O'Banner?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think
Kevin
it's
O'Banner.
Obanor.
It's the pronunciation guide says O'Banner.
Okay.
But
I'm
it says Raptors signing.
I'm a misinformation freak today.
They're out of Exhibit 10 contracts, right? Like this has to be a real deal, not a. I'm not. Do you know
I
that?
don't know. Well, if Jared and Jared is no longer there, Jemias is no longer there, then they would have one. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they have an Exhibit 10.
Okay, so who knows if this is just further churn? We don't know if it's an Exhibit 10 or a real contract. Oh no, Blake announces they will immediately waive him. This is a G League contract. So okay, that's not Bruno Fernando. Now we're both lying to people.
Yeah, Coco in chat says Samson has been steering us wrong. I'm so sorry, but the good thing is this is, we're correcting ourselves. And that's all you can really do is if you're wrong, just correct it. And I notice every time there's like Raptors news happens, the number of watchers in chat goes up, and then they realize we're talking about like very niche Raptor stuff, and they're like, okay. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with the Raptors roster. I guess there's a lot of stuff up in the air. What were we talking about before that though? What's identity? Identity.
Yeah.
What identity do you? Oh, Sophia says Chet would be an interesting co-star for Scott. Yeah, that's a fun one too.
Great.
But identity wise, as you say, the assist farm.
Yeah, I think last year offensively, the identity was pretty clear. I think Darko Rajakovic pretty quickly and competently instituted his offensive identity. And you saw that in the numbers, not the big picture ones, but more subtle ones. Expected field goal percentage, which Nick Nurse always claimed was his team was near the top of the league, but I don't know what stats they're collecting. Obviously, they have different private stats, but all the databases that I had access to, which was a lot, they were never near the top of the league. The Raptors were last year. They were higher last year than they were several in the few seasons before under Nurse. Their expected field goal percentage based on shot location, shot type was really, really, really high. Obviously, the roster didn't convert that. Their actual effective field goal percentage was much lower. But I think offensively, really a high amount of passing, high amount of ball and man motion, running tons of zoom actions, like weak side actions to engage the defense, to stretch people out. That like horns passing bigs. They had a lot of pretty important principles that were very easy to identify. Defensively, we'll see. I think preseason was encouraging, but it's not clear what their identity will be. You like when somebody gets punched. What's the Mike Tyson quote? Like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. We will see about their defensive identity there, but offensively, I think it's pretty established and impressive as well.
That was what you and I were impressed with early on because it became, I think, quite. It was apparent to us when we were watching. It's like, oh, things changed. They changed fast. It's bad, but it's building towards something better. And obviously, they weren't utilizing. Darko wasn't playing the offense towards exactly what the Raptors would have been, maximizing their talent at the beginning. But the team changed, the roster changed, and it's clear now. Like Emmanuel Quickley is a guy who doesn't create that well in isolation. Neither is Scottie Barnes. These guys need screens. They need motion. They need all that kind of stuff. So the Raptors are playing a way heavier motion defense. Like at the start of last year when it was Pascal was setting 3 times as many off-ball screens as he was the year before. And there was just like a complete change. He was the guy his job changed the most radically,
He was a shooting guard.
Yeah, exactly.
Like now you're a shooting guard. Deal with it.
It's like me with the joining the Nation Network is like the reaction pod goes out the window and I'm just doing other stuff. I won't be traded though. But it's like the change has to come somewhere. And Wembanyama is a great Scottie pairing. We should have said that, obviously. Anybody with Wembanyama is a good one. We'll take one more question before we get out of here. And I think it's a fun one. It's from Josh Conera. Quote, what would you say are the baseline of skills required to be a successful backup guard in the NBA? And I know you have quite an affinity for backup guards. So I'll let you go first because I really do have, I think, a lengthy answer to this.
Okay. Paint touches, just automatic paint touch,
Yep.
right? And that's true of any guard in the NBA. Like, obviously, starting guards need that as well. But if you can't just get to the paint, then I don't think there's a place for you as a guard in the NBA. On top of that, I think a baseline of shooting. There are guards who can start and not be shooters if they are elite elsewhere. But I think the day of the backup point guard who can't shoot, at least off the catch, is just that's long gone. Defensively, I don't know if I see too many non-negotiables. There's definitely backup guards who aren't. Yeah, I don't see a through line for backup guard defense. And there's other skills that can go. I think those would be my two answers. Like, also the other thing is just quick decision making. You don't see backup guards pound the ball, and that's just true of any. If you're not a star, and if you are, if you're not a star, and this is true of anyone, not just a guard, then you just can't pound the ball. Like, the NBA is just so fast. So quick decisions, get to the paint, gotta shoot. Those are the three I'd say. I'm sure you have more.
Yeah, so there's like two archetypes. The one that you alluded to with like defense is negotiable, that kind of stuff. There are the like prodigious scorers. That is a lot of backup guards. It's just guys who couldn't run the offense the whole time, who weren't capable enough getting everything in order, and who couldn't justify all of those minutes because of their defense or limitations as a playmaker. But they, as you say, automatic paint touch, shoot the ball, get to plenty of spots on the floor, make things interesting. There is, I think, the other archetype, and I have 4 things listed here. So it's playing at multiple speeds in the pick and roll, so you can pair up with any big man. And so playing at multiple speeds relies on handle, good footwork, and a healthy amount of like pass repertoire. The pocket pass has to be there. Like, you just have to be able to do that. The skip pass has to be there. You have to be able to read the digs, and it goes back to your paint touches thing. Number 2, ball pressure defense. Again, this is if you're not the prodigious scorer. No breaks, and you have to be in the jersey of the defense, because if you're a guard and you're not a big, weird backup guard, you're smaller, like Jamal Shed. Any scout, if you're watching, a tryout or something like that, the smaller guards have to be in the jersey, because you have to pressure the ball. Because if you're a small guard, the other guy is looking at your defense without pressure, and you can run things 4-on-4 with him as the hub. If you're a ball pressure guard, you can disrupt that. You can disrupt timing. You can change the placement of where plays start, and you have to be able to do that because you're giving up size elsewhere on the floor. 3, most of them will shoot at a pretty high level. Even like Monte Morris isn't known as a shooter. He shoots the damn basketball, and he shoots it well. Like, that's just kind of what it has to be. And a willing screener. I think willing screeners, because so many two-guard, like if you're a good backup, you'll be put in 2-guard lineups, and you have to be able to screen for the ball handler and for other bigs to help facilitate other stuff. I think that is largely what makes, backup guards go. Does that sound all right to you?
That sounds about correct, yeah. Like, there's a lot of guys who are super skilled, but they're missing non-negotiables, and they just can't play backup guard in the NBA.
Let's tack something on here then, because we got a question about like 2-guard lineups, if I remember correctly. Where is it? Sorry, everybody.
3-guard. You said 3-guard lineups, because I know a guy.
I was actually going to bring that up, but there was a question about 2-guard lineups that I'm just like not finding for some reason.
Well, you and Will talked about this.
A little bit, yes. What did you think of that conversation?
Sorry, that's not me in the chat, despite my name. I thought there was definitely not a mention of someone who wrote a piece about it previously. That's what I thought. No, I agreed with what you guys were saying broadly. I want to echo, though. I think the very first question we dove into said that you and Will were great. I want to echo that. You and Will were great. I was really, really happy with listening to you guys. Phenomenal tag team. Broadly, I agreed with what you were saying. I think 2-guard lineups are good. I really like getting guards, or at least guard skills from non-guards on the NBA floor. Like, really like it. And that's something that before RJ got hurt, he was running some pick and roll. Like, he is an automatic paint touch. He is a finisher. He can keep the ball humming as a passer. Like, I think you don't need point guards if you can have guys who can do point guard stuff. And the more of that you cram on the NBA floor, especially in this era of just like coaching hyperdrive where there's so much happening at once, the more guys who can do stuff with that. I think it was the end of last season we were talking about like mining silver and turning into gold, and we turned into little dwarves, and
Alchemies.
we were alchemy. Point guards do that, right? Point guards create metals and they turn them into better metals. They do alchemy, and just you want guys who do that on the floor. The more the better.
AG in chat touches on something, says Jamal and Davion cannot play together. Well, I think that is true. There you can run other 2-guard lineups without doing that. They'll be paired with quickly. And here's the question from Shai Halud Alexander. My dear friend Nabil says, how have your lineup projections and excitement for various combinations changed if we can extrapolate this version of preseason Gradey we got for the regular season, the dual point guard looks, and a returning healthy roster? So we kind of talked about the dual point guard looks, what works there. This was the question I was thinking about. But are there any new, and the ultimate dual point guard lineup that I think most people would think is where Davion replaces, let's say, Gradey in the starting lineup. And that I think that lineup will score a lot. Or there's a lot of NBA scoring in that lineup that can paper over Davion's lack of scoring punch. And Davion really puts Emmanuel in a much stronger role defensively. But are there any lineups that you've started thinking about that seem interesting to you?
Well, I wrote a piece about lineups that I was thinking about a while ago. I think Jacoby Walter and Grady Dick were drafted with the intent of playing together. I really like the vision of them together. Just like the shooting, cutting, movement thing is a lot of NBA skills are additive. A lot of NBA skills are not additive. And some NBA skills are multiplicative, right? And I think cutting, shooting, movement, that thing is multiplicative. You saw that with all those championships that Klay Thompson and Steph Curry won together, because they're just like, their abilities just enmesh and we're able to like create this stream of advantages that in isolation was more than the sum, right? And I'm hopeful that the Raptors, obviously not to a championship level from those two, but can get a similar more than the sum of their skills together. That's one thing. I'm sure you have more specific lineups. What are you thinking?
Well, I haven't actually given that much thought to lineups just because nobody's been healthy and we're just waiting to see so much of it turn out. But how Gradey looks, I think, makes it like Ochai. If Gradey had been ho-hum, Ochai could have maybe had a really strong case to steal the starting 2-guard spot. That doesn't look like it's really going to be the case, but he can take RJ's spot for the first couple of games or something like that. I think we were doing a decent job of projecting what this team looks like before the season. So the considerations for like Davion sliding into the starting lineup, for Kelly and Scottie being like an interesting pairing in the front court, maybe like 2-guard lineups, and which is probably Davion and IQ, but could also extend to IQ and Jamal Shed. Like that kind of stuff has always been interesting. We're just going to wait and see what happens with the efficacy. While I have you here, Louis, how many games are the Raptors winning this year?
I'm going to think 30, 35, 36. There are like obviously trades would change that. Injuries would change that. But I think this team's a little too good to tank, like you've been saying. Just with like that starting lineup, man, with Gradey, based on what he looks like, quickly. Yeah, the over-under that you're mentioning is definitely factoring in the possibility of trades and injuries. That starting lineup, like quickly, Gradey, Scottie, RJ, and Yak, that's gonna win minutes, man. That's the lineup I'm most excited to see, right? That lineup is gonna be fun. And as long as those 5 are playing minutes together, it's gonna be tough to not be at least close to a slightly sub 500 team.
That was my thinking too. And honestly, I think they win 38 games this year.
38. That's a lot of games. I love that.
That's a lot of games, but there's guys on this roster who win minutes, and when you win minutes, you win games. And I'm saying that they don't blow it up.
Yeah.
I'm saying because again, and I'll say this a million times, when they say a draft class is prodigious, it usually isn't. When they, like the 2020
They're
draft,
lying to you.
well, the top end of the 2020 draft, which people said was ho-hum, has been a fair bit better than the top end of the 2021 draft, which people said was going to be like comparable to 2003. And it's just tanking it all. Like Wembanyama was one thing, but I don't know if it's exactly the same this year.
Cooper
And
Flag is not Wemby.
That's true. And you know what? I'll shake on that one. I'll take that one to the bank. Cooper Flag is not Wembanyama. And the motivation to tank isn't the same. I think the motivation will end up being this year that they just let the guys play. And I think they play themselves in the 10th or 9th seed probably. Yeah. That's and Vilifying Force says you still have to draft well, even if it's a prodigious draft. That is so true. And the Raptors have drafted and traded for guys that they like. Hopefully they pan out. I think they'll have a bit of an opportunity too. As Masai said during Kyle and DeMar years, they will be given a platform. That feels like a podcast, yeah, Louis?
This was fun. The other thing about the wins and watching preseason, I messaged you this last night. I wanted to say it again. We've had some not fun to watch years. Like we've had some years with players that were unhappy, with fans that were tuning out, with a lot of uncertainty. We've had some not fun to watch years. And this year, even if they win 28 games, if they win 38 games, it looks like it's going to be really fun. I'm devastatingly excited. I love basketball, and I love basketball where the guys are having fun, where the players don't come up to media after the game and look like they want to just cry. Like, this is going to be better no matter what happens. I'm really excited for the year.
Yeah. And honestly, the bar is not high either. We watched them lose 16 games in a row. Like, we watched it. It was really bad. And there was one guy who could have saved that, and he was injured. He broke his hand. It was Scottie. And I think Scottie will be healthy. And Scottie's a big swing here. Sometimes what all NBA players do, what stars do, is they take teams that most people think would belong under 29.5 wins on the season, and they just lift them well above it. So
De'Aaron Fox.
And we'll see. We will see. All right, Louis, thank you so much for joining me. Listeners, make sure to like the video before you get out of here. It helps promote the chat. Actually, and right after you get out of here, go right to Raptors Republic, the YouTube page, and watch my video essay on Scottie Barnes. This is for listeners live. This is for listeners afterwards. Thank you very much. I worked very hard on that stuff. Read all of what we're doing at Raptors Republic. The frequency is higher. The quality is just as high. This is a big, big year for Raptors Republic. We are teaming up, of course, with Hello and Welcome under the Nation Network, and we want to punch up and we want to beat Sportsnet, man. Blake, Matt Bonner, a two-man, but Louis and me versus Blake and Matt Bonner. We're losing the basketball.
We could play them. Let's try it.
No, Matt Bonner is waxing, man. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So anyway,
we get 3 guys.
4. Let's do 4.
You, me, and Trey, maybe.
I don't know, man. There's been good big men that I have been the dig, and Trey has been the primary, and they've still beaten us. And I think Matt Bonner would be mincemeat. Anyway, a long way of saying thank you so much to everybody for listening. We appreciate you very much. I'll add timestamps, and this will go to his podcast afterwards. The podcast people, thank you so much for tuning in afterwards. Thank you. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, from myself and Louis, have a blessed day and goodbye.